Hello everyone, and welcome to today's building demonstration. My name is Kayla, and I will be presenting for you today. And then we also have Philip here with us, and he is here to answer any questions you might have during today's presentation. So before we jump into our plan, let's take a look at our GoToMeeting control panel. By default, everyone is going to be on Use Mic and Speakers. Now I do have everyone muted today, so you don't need to worry about setting up a microphone, but if you're having difficulty hearing me, go ahead and select this sound check option, and that will give you some different speaker options to be able to troubleshoot that issue. If you still have difficulty hearing me, feel free to switch over to the Use Telephone option, and you'll see a number where you can call in and listen to me in that way. Like I said, we have Philip here with us, so if you have any questions at all during today's presentation, feel free to type them into this box here. You can press send, and then you'll see your question and then Philip's reply there below. So today we're going to go through a full home plan. We're going to start by drawing out our walls and looking at some of our dimensioning options. We'll move into our openings, our doors and our windows. We'll move on to creating new floors, so a second floor and a foundation. We'll create our roof. We'll go through some different stair dialog options. We'll create a simple kitchen design and then an electrical plan. Then we'll take a look at some of our terrain options and create a site plan there. We'll take a look at our material list. We'll finish up with our framing, and then we'll create a full plan set based off of what we've done. So let's go ahead and just jump right into our plan. We're going to open up Chief Architect Premiere, and this is the X8 version. So when we first open up a Chief Architect program, we're going to get this welcome screen that appears. From here we can select to open up a blank new plan. We can open up a plan that we've previously been working on and continue working there. Or over here on our right we have some resources if you need a little bit of help getting started. If you click here, it's going to take you to our website, show you some additional training options, and we'll take a look at some of those at the end. I'm just going to exit out of here because I already have a plan open. So what we're looking at right now is our drawing space, and we're looking at our plan view. Up here at the top we have our architectural toolbar. These are the tools that we have to draw and design our home, our architectural features of the house. We have some display options over here, and we'll use a few of those as we go along today. And we're going to begin just by jumping right in, and we're going to draw out the walls of our home. So the configuration that we're using is called a drop-down configuration. If I click on the parent tool, in this case this exterior wall, you can see over here we have our child tools, the different wall options available off to the left. For instance, if I click on my railing instead of my walls, I have my different railing options. Also, this drop down enables me to see the different wall options that I have here. We're going to start just with a basic straight exterior wall. So to draw, I'm simply going to click and drag inside my plan. And notice as I do so that I have a temporary dimension that appears along the length of the wall telling me what its length is. When I release my mouse, and I'm scrolling in here with my scroll wheel so you can see a little bit more of what's going on. When I release my mouse after drawing, it's going to drop in that wall. I'm going to click and drag again. Again, you can see that temporary dimension. And then I'm going to release in order to draw the wall. So I can simply click and drag along every wall that I would like to draw. Now if you're not seeing this temporary dimension, this is one of our display options. So right here, you can see the temporary dimensions option. If I uncheck that, it looks gray. If I check it, it's going to have a blue highlight to it telling me that my temporary dimensions are on. And so if I select a wall, I'm also going to see that same temporary dimension. So that enables me to put my cursor right over the dimension and click. I'll do that again. So I'm going to put my cursor over that dimension, click. It's going to open up a dialog. So I can type in, for instance, 42 feet, hit enter, and it's going to move the wall and resize it. But while I'm drawing right now, I'm not going to worry about the dimensions. I'm just going to get the general shape of the home down. So we can just draw out each of the walls. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead. So as soon as I finish drawing out my walls, a couple of things happen. First of all, I get a living area that's telling me the square footage of the home so far, which is going to change because we still have to finish dimensioning this home. And then if I take a floor overview here, we're going to get into our first 3D view. So if we're looking at our camera options, I'm going to do a floor overview so I can see what we've drawn so far. So just by drawing out each of my walls and connecting them, Chief Architect automatically placed a floor inside my room and a floor platform. It placed drywall on the walls, and there's even molding within this room just based off of the defaults that I have set up. For instance, I have this wall set as my default exterior wall. So if we open it up, we can see what this looks like. So everything within Chief Architect, we have the ability to open up and make modifications to. So we have our wall specification dialog when we open up a wall to edit it. So here we have our general panel, and if we come down to wall types, here's where we can specify what our default wall, what this particular wall is going to look like. Now if we open up the define option here, it's going to take us to our wall definition panel. So this is where we can specify the different layers of our wall. As you can see, we have a number of pre-designed wall types built into the program, and we have the ability to add, remove, and change layers. So for instance, this is a fir framed wall, which is why we have our 24-inch on center fir framing set as a layer within our plan. We can also change the fill color. So that fir framing layer is currently set to this blue color. If we were to select that, we can open it up and change it to whatever color we want it to be. And my default wall I actually have set as a pony wall within this plan. So I have my stone on the outside, or on the lower half rather, of this exterior wall. Within this wall dialog, we also have the ability to adjust a wall covering. So if we wanted to add wallpaper on the inside of this wall, we could do so. Or if we wanted to change just the basic material of the surface of this particular wall, we could do that as well. But what we're not going to do is raise and lower the height of this wall, because the height of the wall is typically determined by the ceiling height within my room. So if I select the room, which I did just by selecting within that area, so the room in this case is our entire space, this is where we can set under structure our ceiling height, and our walls are automatically going to follow that ceiling height. So if we wanted to have 10-foot ceilings, we could change it in our finished ceiling here. I'm going to leave my ceiling height the way that it is, select OK, and now let's finish dimensioning our space. So I'm going to go back to my floor plan view now. I'm going to leave this camera view open, but you see I have a tab here where I can simply select it to move over to my floor plan. So I'm going to zoom out using my scroll wheel on my mouse. And we have a number of different dimensioning options available. We have manual dimensioning, which we'll use in a bit, but right now I'm going to use my automatic dimensioning tools. So if I simply select this Auto Exterior Dimensions, it's going to place an exterior dimension along every exterior wall of my house. Now, just like I did with my temporary dimension from earlier, I can select a wall, select on a corresponding dimension. So in this case, I'm selecting this wall that I want to physically move locations. I'm going to click on a dimension, and I can update it to 16 feet 5 inches. Then we'll hit enter, and you can see that change applied there. Now, we typically want to start at one area of the house and then move in a clockwise direction around the house. That way, when I update a dimension, I know that I'm not going to be changing a dimension that I've already moved. Now, in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead again. So up until now, we've been designing mostly in our plan view, our floor plan view. But we also have the ability in Chief Architect programs to design almost everything in a 3D or a 2D view. For instance, if we switch over to our 3D view, I'm going to select a different wall option, so in this case our straight interior wall. So I can click and drag just as I drew walls in my 2D view to draw a wall in my 3D. Then, when I go back to my floor plan view, you can see it placed that wall in my plan view as well as my 3D view. And that's because Chief Architect is an interactive 3D model, so I don't have to worry if I place something in a 3D view that I'm going to be able to see it in my plan view as well. Now I'm going to turn off my dimensions here, and I'm actually just going to turn off the layer because I don't want to delete them altogether. So we have layer set options here. I'm going to open up my display options so that I can go down to my dimension and dimensions automatic, and I'm simply going to uncheck the display, select OK, and it doesn't delete them, it just temporarily turns them off until I need them again. Now let's take a look at another type of dimension. I'm going to draw another interior wall, and we also have manual dimensioning options. So the manual dimension is going to locate to a number of different points along any line that we draw. The end-to-end dimension is going to only dimension one end to another. The interior dimension is going to pick from drywall to drywall along any point within your plan. So no matter where I draw, I'm only going to get from drywall to drywall within this room. And these dimensions we can move around to position within our plan. They also give us a position to edit our dimensions. So if I select this wall and I click on this dimension, it's going to make the change just as it did for our exterior walls earlier. So in this case we're pretty close. I just want it to be 22 feet. We'll hit enter. And this room I actually want to be a garage. So I'm going to open up this room, and we have the ability to specify our room type. There's a number of them that come with the program. I'm going to change this over to a garage. Now several of the rooms have defaults built into them that are separate from our basic room type. So when I select OK and we go back to our floor overview, when I look at this garage, it now has a concrete floor, and when we build our foundation, it's going to build a slab foundation rather than our crawl space that we're going to be designing later. So there are several rooms, such as a kitchen or a bathroom or our garage, that are going to have specific default setup for how the floor is going to be structured beneath it. Now as I'm looking at my plan here, I notice that we have a different color on the wall of our exterior than our interior walls. So there are several ways that we can rectify this. The first would be to simply use our material eyedropper tool. So that's going to enable me to select any material in my plan, and then it's going to change my cursor to a spray can so I can paste that material anywhere else in my plan. I can paste it onto a component, which in this case would be just one wall, and that is a new feature of X8, by the way, that we can paste it onto just one wall. We can also paste it onto the room as a whole, so it would update that material throughout the entire room. We could do the entire floor, which I could definitely do, and it would update both walls. But actually, I'm not going to use my material eyedropper. I'll show you how it works so we can just click and paste it. But I'm going to undo that, and what we're going to do, I'm going to open up this wall, and again down in our wall types tool, we're going to define this, and we're going to actually change the default color for our walls. So I'm going to change this to my plan materials, and we're going to scroll down until we find our drywall. Select OK. We'll do the same thing on the other side of the wall. Plan materials, drywall, OK. And it will update that material, not only for the wall that we had selected, but also for every instance of that particular wall type in my plan. That also means that when I draw out interior walls from now on, they're going to have that material on both sides. Now I'm going to switch back to my plan view. And again, for the sake of time, I've finished drawing all of my interior walls. I'm going to go ahead and delete these dimensions here. I'm just going to select to delete each one of those. So now let's take a look at some of our door and window options. So up here in our architectural toolbar, we have a number of different door options. We have a hinged door. So if we click to place that in the plan, you can see it's going to give us a preview of where that's going to place. If I click down but don't release right away, and I move my cursor around, it will give me the ability to change the hinge and swing style of the door. Now if I click and then I change my mind about how I want that to look, I can, down here in my edit toolbar, which is our toolbar for editing the object we have selected, I can change the opening side, or I can change the swing side. So with a click of a button we can move that around. You also, if we select this door, we can change the way that that hinge or swing displays in the plan. I'm going to delete that because we're going to use a different type of door there. We're going to place a pocket door. So that one, if I hold down my cursor, I can swing, and I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, I can swing the side of the door that it's going to open on. So in this case, we're going to swing it over that direction. We also have a sliding door option. So I'm just going to, we're still on pocket door. Let's switch over to sliding door, and we can just click to place sliding doors within the plan. Now to place a little bit more precisely, I'm going to use a combination of my dimensioning options. So if I select this door, I'm then going to click on the dimension telling me how far apart these doors are. I'm going to change that to exactly 2 feet, and I'll hit enter. Then I'm going to hold down my control key so I can select both of these doors together. So you can see down in the bottom left it's telling me that 2 objects are currently selected. Then I'm going to use my center object tool, which is another option I have down here in my edit toolbar. When I select that and I move my cursor around, it's going to give me different indicators. I want to center it directly in this room, so as soon as I see the line indicating that, I can click and it will center those doors exactly within that space. Now I'm going to place another sliding door up in this space. I'll click to place that in, and I'm going to place one more swinging door, or a hinged door, here in the front of my home. Let's take a look at our open camera view here. So taking a look at our sliding doors, you'll notice we placed a sliding door from up in our architectural toolbar in both of these spaces, but it's 2 completely different doors that were placed. This is because our defaults have different settings for interior versus exterior doors. The same goes for our exterior hinged door versus our interior. So Chief Architect is smart enough to know when we need a door that's leading from one interior space to another versus when we have a door that's leading to an exterior space. And looking at these 2 doors, I can see that my pocket door does not have the style of door that I want to use throughout my home. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a tool called our Object Eyedropper. This enables me to click on it, and just like we did with our material earlier, we can select the door. Now down here in our Edit toolbar, it's going to change to allow me to select properties to paint. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to ask me what properties do I want to load into my spray can to paste onto another object. I'm going to clear all of these for right now, and we're going to search for, we have just our style, which is going to come down here, and I also want our molding, which is the lintel, and then I'm going to check, we're going to go check the interior lintel width and extension and the exterior lintel width and extension. So once we've selected all of the features of the door that we want to paste, I'm going to select OK, and I'm going to paste them onto that door. So with one click, it's updated that single pocket door in my plan. And notice I also had options to narrow or expand the scope. I could have pasted onto the entire floor or onto my entire plan. So if I undo that and change to floor mode, we're going to raise up here so we can see what's going on. Now, when I click, it's going to apply to that type of door throughout my entire floor. And now I'm going to select this pocket door, and down in my Edit toolbar, I have the ability to set it as the default. So when I click that, now every pocket door that I place in my plan, so we're just going to place one over here so we can see what that would look like, is going to carry the features of the door that I selected to set as default. And we can do the same thing with our windows. So if I place a window into my plan and I open it up to edit it, so let's just double click to open that up. So this is the default window that we have set up for our plan. In our General tab here, we have the ability to adjust the dimensions of the window, including where it sits within the wall, how far off the floor it's going to be. We can adjust the casing, so we can make it wider or smaller. In this case, I have a thicker exterior casing than an interior, or rather a wider casing. We can set a lintel, which I do not have for this window. We can adjust our sill, so in this case I want to uncheck my exterior sill. I don't need a sill out there. We have options for our sash and our frame for the dimensions of each of those. And in our Lights tab, we can adjust how many window panes we have in our window. So right now we're using a Craftsman style. You can change it to a normal or a prairie. And we can adjust whether we have them in the top and the bottom, and how wide the muntins are. So we're going to switch back to our Craftsman style. Let's just go ahead and increase, or decrease rather, the size of those Craftsman lights there. So then, I'm not going to change anything else, although we could change the shape. We can add in our R values, we can add shutters or window treatments to the window itself. I'm going to accept what we have and select OK. And then just like we did for our door, I'm going to set that as the default. So now every window that I place into my plan is going to have those same settings. Now we also have a new feature in our X8 program. I'm going to switch over to this corner so we can see how this looks. I'm going to place a window into each corner here. We have a new corner window option. So first off, we're going to go ahead and hold down our control key to open up both of these. And we're going to change it to a fixed glass, and we'll adjust our lights just so that they're smaller there. There we go. Now, if I grab my move handle here and I pull all the way over, at some point you can see it's going to snap closer to the corner. I'm going to do the same thing here. We're just going to pull over as far as we can, and it'll snap into the corner there as well. So there we have a start to our corner window, but if I open up both of these windows together, in my frame option, I can deselect Has Corner Post, select OK. You can see it's going to remove that post and it's going to be just a window all the way across. So it's now very easy for us to create those corner windows in Chief Architect. So now I'm going to exit out of my plan view. You can see what that corner window looks like in our 2D view. We're going to go ahead and delete that because this is a bedroom and we don't really need that in that location. But let's zoom out a little bit and let's create our second floor. So now we have our first floor pretty well established. We're going to go ahead and build our second floor. So I'm going to come up to my Build New Floor tools. We're going to just select to Build New Floor. Now it's going to ask us if we want to derive the second floor from the first floor plan or if we want to make a new blank plan. By deriving the second floor, it simply means that it's going to place all of our exterior walls for the second floor in the exact location that they are on the first floor, which is exactly what we want to do. And then we'll move them around from there. So I'm going to select OK, and we're going to have floor 2 defaults. So each floor is going to have different defaults for what it's going to naturally do for the ceiling height, as well as for our moldings and different materials even. So if we know that our second floor is going to be mostly bedrooms, we can change that over to carpet. In structure right now, I'm going to change my ceiling height to 6 inches. And the reason is I want my roof to come down and meet up with 6 inches just above my first floor. So this is the route that I'm going to take to do that. We're essentially creating living space in our attic area. Because we can't draw in our attic, we're going to create a second floor that's going to take the place of our attic. So we'll select OK, and it's going to bring us up to our second floor. You can see it's by the number 2 here. We're now on floor 2. Now I'm going to use one of my display tools over here. We have our floor reference display. So if I click on that, which you can also do by selecting F9, it's going to show where my walls are below my second floor. So now that I see what's going on my first floor, I'm going to simply pull all of my walls back. I'm going to pull this back to meet all the way up here. And then I'm going to grab this wall, which is over what will become my porch area. I'm going to pull that back as well. And speaking of our porch area, really quickly before we move on to our roof, I'm going to go down to my first floor. I'm going to use my railing tools. I'm just going to click and draw out a porch room for us here. So we're just going to double click inside there, change it to a porch, which if we look under our structure panel, by default is going to place a roof and a ceiling over, which is exactly what we want to do. Then once I've dimensioned it, I'm going to go back up to my second floor. So now we're going to focus in on our roof area. Before we do that, let's take a look at our cross section. So I'm just going to take a quick clip of this home so far so we can see what we're looking at. So right now this is just a cross section view of our home. So we have our first floor, and then we have our second floor platform, and 6 inches above this line, this top line here, is our ceiling. And I've set that at 6 inches because I want my roof to come down and build right along this wall. So now let's go back to our floor plan, and I'm going to turn off my reference display since we don't really need those right now. I'm going to go up to my build roof options, select to build roof. So this is our roof dialog. So right away I'm going to select to build roof planes, and I'm going to select to auto rebuild roofs, and I'll show you why in just a minute. Here's where we can specify our default pitch, which I'm going to leave at 8 and 12. We can specify a default overhang, so we can change that to longer or shorter if we want a long overhang there. We also have a number of panels here to specify things like our ridge cap and our rafter tail, what the gutter looks like. If we come down to our roof styles, here's going to give us a little bit more information of the different types of roofs that we can create using our automatic roof tools. So if we select this gable roof, it's going to open our help option to show us that you can click the Change to Gable Wall button in order to change a roof from a hip to a gable. So let's exit out of here. You can see the number of different styles we have here. We have our half hip, our gull wing, our shed roof, so you can see all of the different ways that we can create those. I'm going to select OK, which is going to build our automatic roof. So as you can see, by default, Chief Architect has placed a hip roof onto this plan. And the way that our automatic roof tools work, if we go back to our floor plan, when we select a wall, we can open it up, or a railing in this instance, and we can adjust the way that the roof sits on that wall. So we can either change it to a gable wall, which is what we're going to do right here. Select OK and go back to our full overview. We can see we now have a gable there. We can also, if we select a different wall, we can open it up and we can change the pitch of it. We can change the overhang just on a wall-by-wall basis. We have options to specify an upper pitch, so if we were going to do like a gambrel or a gull wing style, we would select an upper pitch and have two different roof planes with different pitches above that single wall. And then we have some roof return options as well. So I'm going to go back to our floor plan and I'm going to change a number of these to gables. So first, this back wall we're going to change to a gable, and we have a shortcut key here on our toolbar to quickly change to a gable. I'm going to go up to my second floor. We're going to specify this as a gable. Then we're going to make both this wall and this wall a gable. Now I'm going to use my break wall tool, which we haven't used quite yet. I'm going to break my wall so that we have two independent sections side by side. Now this section I'm going to change to a gable, and then I'm going to select this section and we're just going to change the dimensions of that. And I'm going to do another break wall over here, and we're going to change this back section to a gable as well. And now I'm just going to pull down this wall until we have a ridge that extends all the way across. So now let's take a look at our overview so we can see what this plan looks like so far. So if we spin around this home, you can see we have our nested gables created by changing both of these walls to a gable wall. We have a gable here in the back, and here in the very back of the home there's a couple of changes I want to make. So this is a little bit steep for the back of our house, so I'm going to hold down my control key and select each one of these walls. Actually, we're going to deselect that one, and we're going to open them up, and under the roof panel we're going to change this to more like a 5 and 12 pitch. Select OK. It's going to lower that down to a much more reasonable pitch. And now I'm going to take this wall and we're going to change it to a gable, which is just going to make a nice shed roof coming off. So with that, we finish off our roof section until we create our dormers. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to our cross-section elevation because I want to see some of the changes we've made. So now we have our roof that's sitting here, but our ceiling still sits at a 6-inch height. So we don't have any real livable space because our ceiling is so low. So we'll go back to our floor plan, open up this second floor room, and in structure, we're going to raise the ceiling height up to 100 inches. Select OK. And now watch what happens when I go to my cross section. It's raised my roof up 100 inches. Which is not actually what I wanted to do. So we're going to go back to our floor plan and we'll undo that. So because we have our automatic roofs turned on, it's going to raise my roof as I raise my ceiling. If I go into my build roof dialog, I have two options. I can either uncheck auto rebuild roofs, or I can select to ignore the top floor. So if I uncheck auto rebuild roofs, select OK. Now, when I change the structure of this room to 100 inches and go into my cross section, now you can see our roof stays down to my first floor, or 6 inches above where I had set it, but my ceiling height has raised. The second option, if we open up that build roof dialog, would be to check this ignore top second floor, in which case I would need to raise the height from the floor, because as you recall, I have set that as 6 inches above my first floor. And now that we have a high enough ceiling, we're going to go back to our floor plan. You can see our ceiling height based off of these dashed lines here. We're going to drop in some dormers. So I didn't want to drop in our dormers before we raised our ceiling height because our dormer needs to have a certain height to be able to have livable space there. So we're going to draw out walls where the backs of our dormers are going to connect. I'm simply going to click and drag across my plan to draw out my interior walls. And then I'm going to get into my roof options. We've just been getting into the build roof. Here we have the options to draw out roof planes manually, which we're not going to do in this particular plan. Same with ceiling planes, you can draw those out manually. But what I want to focus on right now is our dormer tools. We have an auto floating dormer, which is simply going to sit on the roof plane itself. It's not going to be a structural dormer. Our auto dormer requires a wall to back up with because when we drop it in, it's going to meet up with those walls to create livable space underneath. And if we take a look at our full overview, we can see the dormer that we've just placed. So it's a nice tiny little dormer. We're going to change the size of that. So here in my 3D view, I'm going to select this dormer. I'm going to open it up. And here we have our dormer specification. So I can change the roof style. You can see quite a few different styles that it'll create automatically for us with this dormer. We can change the pitch, which I'm going to leave at 12 and 12. We can change our overhang, which is quite a small overhang, and that's what I want for my dormer. And I'm going to get into walls. I'm going to set that to existing ceiling, which means it's going to raise the dormer up so that the ceiling of the dormer matches up with the ceiling of my second floor, which as you can recall is 100 inches. I'm going to select OK, and it'll raise that dormer up. I'm going to change this window so that it's a little bit smaller here. And I can adjust the width of the dormer through that specification we were just looking at, or I can simply click and drag and use my edit handles to resize it in my view here. We can also get a little more precise if I get into my floor plan because I want to get as close to these roof planes as I can. So I'm just going to drag that out and drag this side out a little bit more. And then if we get back to our full overview, my window is a little bit larger than I would like, so we're going to resize that to 38 inches. And we'll copy and drag out a copy right next to it. So you can see how easy it is for us to create dormers of various shapes with our plan. If I go back to my floor plan view, let's take a quick camera view of this. So there we have our dormer that is set to the ceiling height of our existing room. So now that we have our second floor and our roof, let's exit out of this view and let's go back to our first floor. We're going to go ahead and build our foundation. So just like we built our first floor, we're going to come up to our floor options, select Build Foundation, and here we have our Build Foundation dialog. I'm going to check to automatically rebuild foundation, which means that if I were to move any of my first floor walls or make any changes to my room dialogs on my first floor, it'll update the foundation in order to accommodate it. Our foundation type, we have a few different that it will build automatically. We have walls with footings, which is what we're going to do, whether it's a basement or a crawl space. We have a pier foundation and a monolithic slab. We can set our slab thickness, specify whether it's going to be at the top of the stem wall if we were going to be doing a slab foundation. And for our stem walls for our crawl space that we're going to be doing, here's where we can set our default type. So if you're going to be doing like a blocked foundation, you can change the default wall, which will open up that wall dialog just like you saw before. And the minimum height we're going to leave at 37.5, just big enough for our crawl space. We do have a sill plate selected, so we have a 2x6 sill plate, and we have different options for our garage than for anything else. Then in our options panel, here's where we can set our rebar spacing, including if we're using a mesh, and our course spacing for the walls, the slab, and if we're doing a pier, there's different options there as well. I'm going to go ahead and select OK, and it'll bring me down to my first floor level, my foundation level, excuse me. Now, if we were to take a floor overview of this really quickly, we can see that foundation. So now that we've built our foundation, let's take a look at our material list. In our Tools option, we have our material list, and there's a number of different ways that we can calculate the material list. We can do it for all floors, which is what we're going to do. You can do just a single room, so if you're doing a whole home but want to focus in on a kitchen, you can definitely do that. You can calculate it from a specific area, which if we were in our floor plan view would be highlighted. It just allows us to highlight over an area, such as a remodel, to calculate just from that space. So we're going to calculate from all floors. So that's going to pull up a full material list of everything we have in our plan so far. So here we have a general ID, It's telling us what floor it's on, the size, a general description, how much of it we have, as well as what unit we're using so that we know whether we're doing lineal feet or a volume of some kind. Here you can input pricing and it will update a total cost and allow you to do cost estimation for your project. If we go down to our foundation, here we have our concrete and our concrete footing. We have the amount of rebar, which we specified in our dialog when we were building our foundation. Now if we go back, we'll exit out of here for right now, and we'll go back to here. So clearly this space would need an additional wall to support the first floor. I'm not going to engineer the building, but I am going to, we'll draw out that wall just so we can see what that would look like. So we're going to use our break wall tool again. And this is just asking me if I want to turn off that auto rebuild foundation that we turned on earlier. I do want to turn that off so that I can make some changes. So now I'm going to select that section, and when we're drawing walls, there's one edit handle we haven't used. That's this diamond here at the end. That's the draw same wall type. So that enables me to grab it and pull it across so I draw the exact same wall type as the one over here. Now I'm going to pull this back. I'm going to pull this wall back here. And we go back to our floor overview. You can see that wall drawn across that space. Now if we were to calculate our material list, come up to Tools, Material List, and Calculate from All Floors. Go back down to our foundation. The amount of concrete that we were using before was about 24 cubic yards. Now we've jumped up to 28. So you can see how that material list is going to adjust based on what you've placed in your plan. So everything that we do is going to have an effect on this material list. So now I'm going to exit out of here and we'll go back up to our first floor. Let's go ahead and exit out of this overview as well. And then this cross section, which now has our foundation here, we're going to go ahead and save this camera. So we have a Save Active Camera tool, which when we click that, when we exit out of that cross section, we retain the cross section call marker in our view. So now I'm going to move over to this area because we're going to focus on our stairs so we can get up to that second floor we've built. We're going to draw the stairs directly in this area. So to take a look at our stairs, we're going to get into a floor overview, and we're going to be focusing in on this area here. And so we can see everything a little bit better, we're going to turn a couple of walls invisible. So I'm going to select this wall and hold down my control key so we can select both of them. You can open up both of these walls and we're going to mark them as invisible, so we can get a little bit of a better look at the area we're going to be drawing our stairs in. We can turn them back as soon as we're done drawing out our stairs, and they'll retain all the properties that we had set initially. And then I'm going to go ahead and tile my views vertically so I can be looking at what I'm doing in 3D as I'm drawing in my 2D view. So from this view, we're going to take a look at our stair options. We have the ability to draw out our stairs with just a click of a button if we were doing just a straight staircase. We can click and drag to draw out the stairs, which is what we're going to do for this one because we're not going to have just one long staircase. And we also have some curved stairs options that you would be able to use if you're doing a curved staircase, as well as a ramp here in our stair options. So we're going to select our straight stair, and we're simply going to click and drag to draw out a stair section. So you can see that placed in our 3D view here. Now I'm going to use my edit handles to resize this staircase. So I want it to extend to both walls. Then I'm going to draw another section over here, and notice that it's going to draw from the floor up, and it's going to draw it as a completely independent stair section from this one. I'm going to pull this back so we have room for a landing there, and then I'm going to resize it, and as soon as I've done that, if I click between these two stair sections where a landing should go All I have to do with my click stairs highlighted is click between them, and it will automatically create that landing and place it between the two stair sections we've drawn. Now we're going to draw out one more stair section here. I'm going to draw it out over here. And once again, it's drawing from the floor up. And we're going to resize that one. And then once again, I'm simply going to click to place a landing in between the two stair sections. Now, when I double click to open up this stairs, it's going to tell me that it's a shallow staircase, that it only requires 18 total steps, and we have 20 risers. I'm going to select OK, and to rectify this, I'm going to go ahead and select Undo so that we get rid of that landing. And I'm just going to reduce each of these stair sections by 1, which is good because we need a little bit more space for this landing anyways. And once again, I'm going to click between those sections to place our landing. Now, when I double click to open up this stairs, it's telling me that the staircase reaches the next level and is not telling me that it's too steep or too shallow. So this stair dialog is giving us a lot of information about how our stair is being drawn. If we want to override the automatic riser height that it's going to place in there, we can select the section we want to edit and make changes to the varying heights. In this specification, we can also adjust our style. So we can add or remove a stringer. We can make them open underneath or not. So if I uncheck this open underneath and select OK, you can see it's going to place walls underneath my staircase. Now if I undo that, one other way we can draw out a wall underneath the staircase is to simply use our interior wall tool. We need to make sure we have our floor plan highlighted so we're drawing in the view that we have the tool selected. And then we click and drag to draw out the wall. And because it sees that it's underneath that staircase, it's going to cut that wall to fit underneath the stairs. So the program is smart enough to know that we're probably wanting that staircase to not, or the wall to not extend up through the staircase. Now if I double click on this staircase to open it up, and in newel's balusters, I can change the type of newel, baluster, or railing that I'm using. Or I can remove the railing from, say, the right of the wall, or the right of the staircase, select OK, and it'll take it off on the right-hand side all the way along my plan. However, I don't want to remove it on all sections, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my Shift key and double-click on this stair section. Notice now how it's only telling me that I have one stair section selected, whereas before we had all three showing in this view. Now when I go down to my Newell's Balusters tab, I'm going to check to have the railing showing on the right-hand side, but not on the left. When I select OK, now I can adjust just that one section and it's not going to adjust all of the sections that I have here. And for landings, if I want to remove the railing over here, I have a handy tool here in my Edit toolbar, which with one click will allow me to remove the railing along that edge, since I don't need a railing on my landing up against the wall. And once I did so, notice how the icon changed so that if I wanted to add it back in, I can do so again with the click of a button. And let's go up to our second floor. So right now, if we turn on our reference display, we can see the staircase as it's coming up, but if we take a look at our full camera view, we can see the railing, but we don't have any opening leading down to our first floor. So I'm going to go back to my floor plan, and first off, we're going to create a space for this staircase to come through. So I'm going to use my break wall tool to break my wall into 3 separate sections, and we're going to delete this middle section here. Then I'm going to use my draw same type to simply click and drag out a wall on either side. Now I also have a handy tool here in my Edit toolbar to allow me to align my wall with the wall below. so that I can make sure, for a staircase this is especially important, that I have my walls aligned before I create my stairwell. Now for the rest of the stairwell space, I'm going to draw out railing spaces. So directly over where this staircase is, I'm going to click and drag to draw out my railings. And again, I'm going to make sure that this is aligned with my wall below. So now if I get into a full camera view, you can see that space ready for a stairwell. And if I click inside this room and open it up, one of my room types is an open below. I don't want it to name it an open below in my plan, so when I'm looking at my plan view, I want it to be called a stairwell. So instead of using the room type, we're going to call it a stairwell, and we'll select OK here. And it's going to open up now down into my first floor. And if we get back to our floor plan, if we turn off the reference display, we can still see the stairwell displayed in our plan view on both the first and the second floor. So if we go back down to the first floor, there's our stairwell. So now let's move into our kitchen section. I'm going to move up over here and we're going to draw our kitchen in this area. So let's just get into a 3D view for this particular one. So our basic kitchen cabinet tools can be found up here in our architectural toolbar. We have our base wall and full height cabinets. We have a soffit option, which can be used as a soffit, or that's also a great tool to use if you're going to do beams in your house or in your kitchen. We have a shelving, partition, and then several countertop and backsplash options. So we're going to begin our kitchen just by dropping in a base cabinet. I've selected my base cabinet option, and you can see by my selection where it's going to place that cabinet. I can simply click to drop it in. Now this cabinet is pretty close to the wall, so I'm going to select that cabinet and nudge it with my arrow key 3 times so it's 3 inches from the wall. And notice how it's automatically placing a filler. As long as my cabinet is within 3 inches of the wall, it's going to place an automatic filler because it knows that we would need something there. I'm going to place one more base cabinet right next to it, and these are smart objects, so as you can see it wants to place it right up against that next cabinet. So we'll drop in one more, and this one I want to move to make space for a range that's going to go in that spot. So I'm going to use a handy tool. I'm going to click on my move handle and then I'm going to hit the tab key. So this opens up a dialog that will allow me to move this object along the X or Y axis. So in this case, the X position would be left or right, the Y position would be up or down in space, based on the move handle that I had selected. So we want the Y position to change 0, and we want to move our X position. We're going to move that 36 inches, and then we'll hit enter. And you can see it moved it in space exactly the amount that we asked it to. Now I'm going to place one more base cabinet next to that one that we just moved, and I'm going to place a full height cabinet to round off this wall. Now I'm going to finish off this wall with my wall cabinets. So just like with our base cabinets, we're just going to click to drop those in. And we can resize our cabinets just like we do with any other object with our edit handles. So this one I'm going to resize to 48 inches. And notice how it automatically changed my cabinet to a double door once we reached a certain width. Do the same thing over on this side. Just resize it to 48 inches. And then I'm going to place one more here where our range is going to go. We're going to fill the space there, and then I'm going to reduce the size to make space for a hood. Now just with any other object in Chief Architect, I can double click to open up one of these cabinets, and we can make some adjustments. So when we're looking at a cabinet dialog, our general tab is going to be to adjust the dimensions, so the dimensions of the box itself, as well as what type of cabinet we're using, whether we're going to do a bow front, which we can do with Chief Architect. It also can adjust the countertop thickness and overhang. We can adjust our backsplash, toe kick. Then we have several options to do different types of construction, so changing our overlay and making it framed or frameless. And this front sides back panel enables me to select a component and make adjustments to how the front of this cabinet looks. We also, in X8, have the ability to adjust the back, left, and right side independently and create new components there as well. So in this case, I want this to be a bank of drawers rather than a door and a drawer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this door. I'm going to change it over to a drawer. Then I could reduce the height of that and add a new one, but we also have the ability to simply split it horizontally. So while I have this drawer selected, I can click Split Horizontal, and it will split it into 2 drawers for me. Now I want all of these drawers to be equal. So I'm going to select the vertical layout, which is going to be all 3 of my drawers, and then this Equalize button becomes highlighted so that I can click and have equal spacing between each of my drawers. I'm not going to make any more adjustments to this cabinet, but I do want to point out if we want to change the door or drawer style of the cabinet, we can do so here. We can add accessories, so we have the ability to add feet, which is going to insert where our toe kick is. We can add panels and change the style of the panels that we're using. We can add different moldings, either wrapping around the base if we have like an island, or a countertop edge molding would be done here as well. And then we can change all of our materials as well. And you can see how it changed it to our bank of drawers. So now I'm going to exit out of my camera view and let's get into an elevation view to see this wall. So this can be a great view to place shelves and accessories. It also allows me to see, for instance, that I'm not quite lined up here. Well, this should be 36 inches, and then I forgot about my filler here. So I'm just going to pull this over, and it's going to create that automatic filler for me for the wall cabinet as well. And now we have just enough room to add in our range. So we'll open up our library. I'm just going to go into the core catalogs and into our architectural folder, which is where all of our appliances are. And we'll find a standalone range, just a standard size. Actually, I think we are wanting a large one. And once we find one, we'll just click to drop that in. And since we've already dimensioned for it, it just drops right into the space that we had intended. And this is a great view for us to be able to dimension in as well. So one of our automatic dimension tools is an NKBA dimension. Before I do that, I'm going to switch over to my NKBA annotations, and we'll create an NKBA auto elevation dimension. So this is going to dimension all of my cabinets and fillers even. It's going to dimension to the center line of my appliances. And I'm going to clean this up a little bit since this one is dimensioning to several different points along the cabinets and the range. So we're just going to click on it twice, and here we can see where all of my points are snapping to. So what I want it to snap to is, I don't actually want to snap to the countertop for right now, and I don't want to snap to the top of the range, so we're just going to pull to remove each of those. And then I don't want to snap to the toe kick at this point either. So now we can see our 36-inch high cabinets and then the 18-inch difference between the top of our cabinets and the bottom of our wall height. Then I'm going to remove just one more over here. So that we can see our 48-inch high wall cabinets. And then I'm just going to delete the line over here because it's redundant. So once I have all of my dimensions set, I'm going to save this view just like we did earlier, and we're going to exit out of here and we'll use that later for our layout. Now for the rest of the kitchen, I've simply blocked it together. So we have the ability to create architectural blocks which enable us to quickly and easily finish out a home plan. So on our website we have a number of grouped rooms which are going to be architectural blocks, and what we can do is simply click to place them inside the plan. And it's going to place it as a block, so we can dimension it, move it around as we need to, and then we can unblock it. So down here in our edit toolbar we can explode the architectural block, and that enables us to rearrange the specific components, make changes as we need to. And then I also have another kitchen block here, so we can just click to place that in. We're not going to go into too much more detail on the kitchen. We do have a kitchen and bath demonstration that will go into much more detail on altering cabinets and creating full kitchen and bath design sets. Now I'm going to change my layer set from here. Right now we're just on our default set. So that's going to show, if we open up our display options, a specific set of layers. In this case, it's showing most things that we're going to be designing within our plan. It has a good majority of the layers turned on. I'm going to switch over to our electrical set. So it's going to remove quite a few layers and really clean up our design so that we can focus on the electrical. I also do want to turn off the roof planes that are showing here. That's not important for our electrical plan, at least not right now. So we're going to open up the layer and go down to roof planes and turn those off so that they're not displayed in this view. So we already have a few electrical items in this kitchen. With the block came a number of lights, and electrical items are by default going to show up as red objects. You can change that around, but the red makes it very easy for us to locate when we're creating our electrical plans. Our electrical options are up here in our architectural toolbar. We have a 110 and 220 volt outlet, a light, and this is just going to be whatever the default light is set up for our plan. In this case, it's a recessed light. We also have a switch, so we can click to place that in. And we also have an auto place outlets tool. So this enables us to click within a space, and it will automatically place outlets throughout that room. Now, if we don't like where they've placed, we can always move these around into different locations. And again, these are all the default electrical items for our plan. We have quite a few more in our catalog. We have in our mechanical, electrical, plumbing, different symbols such as alarms or different switch options, and even fans, so you can create full electrical plans. Under our electrical options, the final thing here is our connect electrical. So this enables us, and I'm going to go ahead and place one more switch over on this wall. We can draw connections between our different electrical items. So if I just click and drag between two electrical items, it's going to snap and create a connection between them. Then, once I connect all of my lights to two switches, notice how my switch automatically updated the symbol to become a three-way switch. So Chief Architect is smart enough to know that when we have all of our lights connected to two switches, we're creating a three-way, and it's going to update the symbol accordingly. So it becomes very quick and easy to create electrical plans using our Chief Architect programs. While we're in this view, I'm going to exit out of my library browser here. Let's switch over from our electrical set to our kitchen and bath set. And I'm going to place a cabinet schedule. So we're going to come up to our tools, down to schedules, and we're going to grab a cabinet schedule and just drop it right into our plan. So if we zoom in on this, it's going to give us a description of every cabinet that we have placed in our plan right now, as well as a quantity. So you can see there's one base cabinet, our basic 2436 base cabinet, that we have 7 of. And in X8 there's a new feature. If we open this up just by double clicking, we can now add an elevation view. So I'm going to add that to our columns, click OK. And it updates my schedule to include an elevation so we can see what each of these cabinets looks like. So that's a really handy feature that we have new in X8. And if we come over to our kitchen view, you can see each of our cabinets is updated with a new label that corresponds to our schedule. And looking at the full list of schedules, we also have door, electrical, framing. There's quite a few different schedules in there that you can utilize in your plans. So now let's move into building our framing. I'm going to come up to our toolbar here. Let's get into our default set. Actually, I changed my mind on that. Let's get into our framing set. And in this set, we're going to get into our display and just turn off the display of our dimensions. We turned them off in our default set, but now we're going to turn them off in our framing set. And now let's take a look at our framing options. So we're going to come up and just select Build Framing. And we're going to go through each of these panels and simply select to build our framing. So we're going to build our floor framing. Here's where we can adjust our floor structure. And this is just for floor 1. Everything that we see here has already been specified in the dialogues we've looked at previously. So when we created floor 2, for instance, we were able to specify quite a bit of the framing. We just accepted the defaults, which is essentially what we're going to do now, but I want to show you how you can adjust each one of these. You can adjust our ceiling structure as opposed to the floor structure, and you can adjust the spacing for our subfloor for floor 3, which we do not have a floor 3 in this plan. We're going to build our wall framing, and wall framing is based off of the wall types that we've used. So when we were looking at our wall specification dialog earlier, I showed you how our fir framing was set to 24 inches on center. That specific material within the wall is specifying how we're going to space our walls here. If you want to see your blocking, you can specify that for your exterior and interior. We can do our plate count here. We're going to go into openings. We can specify framing on an opening by opening basis, but here's going to be our defaults. If we had any fireplaces, we could do the framing for that separately from anything else. And then we have our roof framing. Now all of this was set up when we built our roof. And this is if we're going to stick frame our roof. So this doesn't include trusses, this is just going to stick frame out the roof based on how we've already drawn it so far. And speaking of trusses, here's where we can adjust the defaults for the trusses if we build some. So from here we're going to select OK. And because we're in our framing view, we can see all of the framing in our floor plan at this point. And if we go down to our foundation level, we can see our floor framing for, this is our first floor on the foundation level. And clearly we have our joists running in the direction that we do not want. So what I'm going to do is very quickly adjust our joist direction. So we can simply click inside our plan to specify which direction we want our joists to go. And then we're going to rebuild, go into our framing and rebuild our framing. We just need to build the floor framing as the subfloor for floor 1. And then here we can specify whether we're going to lap or whether we're going to butt our beams. So let's select OK, and it's going to frame across in the direction that we've specified. And as you can see, we're still simply extending across this foundation wall. So I'm going to open this foundation wall up, and under structure we're going to specify this is a bearing wall. We don't need to create wall footing below because it already is a wall with a footing. Select OK, and now let's update that framing again. And there we can see where we're lapping our framing across where that bearing wall is. So with just a couple of changes made to our plan, we can very quickly adjust the framing to frame it how we would typically want to frame our home. So in essence, you are telling Chief Architect how you're going to frame this building. It's simply going to follow your instructions. I'm going to go back up to my first floor. I'm going to show you one last thing. I'm going to select a wall, and down here in my Edit toolbar, I have this Open Wall Detail option. So this is going to open up the wall so I can see a framing detail for this particular wall. So you can do this on a wall-by-wall basis, and it's even going to label it and tell you which direction you're looking at. And all of our framing members are adjustable. So we can move them around, we can add new ones, we can copy and add new ones just as we would with anything else within Chief Architect. But the automatic framing will definitely get you a good portion of the way there. And going back to our floor plan, if we just want to see overall what this framing looks like, we do have a perspective framing overview as one of our camera options, so we can see a full framing plan that we have so far. So this can be a really great visual for you to use as you're taking a look at your framing. Now let's switch over our layer set. I'm going to switch from our framing to our plot plan set. So now let's take a look at, while we're in this plot plan set, our terrain. We'll exit out of this wall detail there. And I'm going to look at our full overview. So here we have our plan so far. And obviously, as you can see, it's just kind of floating in midair. So what we're going to focus on next is creating the terrain. Going back to our floor plan, we can go up to our terrain options and simply click to create terrain perimeter. This, if we take a look at our full overview, is simply going to place a rectangular flat terrain surrounding our plan. And if we open it up, it's going to set it to automatically be 20 inches, and that's 20 inches below our first floor. So if we were to lower this to, say, 24 inches and select OK, it's going to drop it down a little bit further below our first floor. Now we can dimension our terrain here, just like we did with anything else. We will have a temporary dimension that will tell us the entire length of the terrain, and we have a move handle that will enable us to simply move it around. We can use our edit handles to adjust the size of it, as well as to adjust the shape. And if we use our dimensioning tools, our end-to-end dimension, we can dimension all of our setbacks. So we'll just draw out a dimension on each side. And then we can click on the edge, click on the dimension, and update it just like we would anything else within Chief Architect. So our dimensioning tools work the same pretty much no matter what we are using within the program. So if we know our setback needs to be 36 feet in front, we can adjust it as such. We also have the ability, I'm going to go ahead and delete this terrain now, we can draw out the terrain line by line. So coming up to our CAD tools, which we haven't really explored in much depth yet, we have the ability to draw out a line. So I'm just going to click and drag to draw out a line. I do want to turn that on in this view so I can see what I'm drawing. So if we have a very specific shape, we can draw it out simply with lines. Then once all the lines are connected, it's going to create a standard polyline within Chief Architect. So polylines we have the ability to convert into a variety of different objects. So coming down to my edit toolbar, I have this convert polyline. This is going to ask me what I want to convert this to, because right now, if we take a look in our 3D overview, CAD lines do not have any 3D properties by default. But when we take a look at our floor plan and we convert this over, so we can convert it to a countertop, to a slab, which would just be kind of a concrete slab, or we can convert it to a terrain perimeter. Now this option is only going to be available if we do not already have a terrain, which is why I deleted my terrain before we did this. I'll select OK. It'll ask me where I want to put it, so let's go ahead and keep it at that 24 inches that we had before. And now when I look at my full overview, it created a terrain based on where I drew those lines. So this gives us a lot of flexibility to do quite a few different shapes within Chief Architect if you have a very specific plot plan that you need to be able to draw out. Then in our terrain options, we also can place our elevation data as points, lines, splines, or regions. So a region is just going to make the terrain that elevation for whatever region we draw out. So if we were to draw out a square, yes, I do want to turn on elevation data, it would be that elevation that we set for that entire region that we've drawn out. I'm just going to do simple lines. So we'll just draw a line across the back of this plan. Let's pull it all the way to the back. Open it up and let's set that elevation to, let's say, 20 inches. Which again is going to be 20 inches up from where we had set it. So it was set to 24 inches below our first floor. So this is going to be, basically doing the math, 4 inches below my first floor. Then I'll set a terrain, let's go up to our terrain options, and I'll set a line at the back of the home and the front of the home that are just going to be 0. Hold down my control key to open up both of them at once and we'll set that to 0. And then I'm going to do one more in the front of the home, and we'll set this one to, let's do -20. So now if we take a look at our full overview, you can see how that has adjusted our terrain so we have a slope from the back to the front of our home. So you're going to do a walkout basement, you can definitely do it in this way. And if you have specific terrain data, you can absolutely import that in and use it to create your terrain elevations. So taking a look at the front of the home here, we have a porch that we've created in the front section. I'm going to adjust these railings. I'm going to hold down the control key to select all three. We'll open them up, and I'm going to set this railing to basically just be, if we come down to our newels, or actually our rail style, we're going to just do post to beam, and then we're going to do no rail. So essentially it's just posts leading up to a beam. Then coming down to my newels balusters, we're going to set the newels/posts. We're going to make these nice and big. We're going to make them 6-inch posts. Then we can set the spacing, which I'm going to leave to 96 inches. Select OK. So that now it's just posts leading up to my roof. So to create this, we just drew out basic railings, but if we go back to the back of our plan, in fact we'll zoom around in this section as well, we have two different types of railings. We have our straight railing, and then we have straight and curved railing, and then we have our straight and curved deck railing. So this is very different than our railing tool that we used before. If I click and drag to draw those out and go back to my full overview, it's actually going to create deck framing. So just based on the type of railing that I've used, it's going to create different types of structures. So my porch obviously is a concrete slab, and my deck framing is going to be framed out as such. There's quite a bit more we could do with this terrain. If we open up the image of our final rendering of our home, you can see we can add in plants, we can create edging for our garden beds, we can create sidewalks and different step configuration. And we have quite a few training videos and how-to articles that'll guide you through all of that. But now I'm going to exit out of this full overview. I'm going to go back to my default set, and let's create a new layout. So I'm going to come up to File, New Layout, and this is going to take me to a new blank layout sheet so that we can begin to create our construction documents. So by default I have everything set up so we can add a plan name, can add an address. This is our Chief Architect logo. You can absolutely import your own. And if we go down to page 1, this is where we can make adjustments that are going to show on every other page of our design. So we never want to actually send a view to our page 0 because, like I said, it's going to show on every other page. So we'll begin with page 1, go back to our floor plan. So the first view I want to send, let's just create a front elevation of our home. So we'll do a cross-section elevation. We can just click and drag to draw an elevation at the front of our house. So I'm going to turn off the color in this view, and then I'm going to use a new feature in Chief Architect called our Auto Story Pole Dimension tool. So this creates a series of dimensions at key points throughout our plan, such as the highest ridge, the highest ceiling, top of the garage, top of the subfloor. So it's automatically going to create a series of key dimensions for us within our plan. Then we can send this view to our layout simply by coming up here and clicking our Send to Layout. So here we can specify whether we want the entire plan, the current screen, which is what I'm going to do, and then what scale we want to set it at. Once we know what scale we're using, 1/4 equals a foot, my annotation set is set to a 1/4 inch scale. So if I was going to be doing a different scale, I would probably want to go back and change my annotation set before I created my dimensions so that they were correctly scaled. So we'll select OK there. So it's going to place that image directly into my plan. I can move it around and I can change the bounding box. So I don't want the bounding box to be quite this large. We'll move it here. And now we're ready to send, let's do a rear elevation as well. So we'll go back to our floor plan, create an elevation of the back side, and turn off our color, and then we'll send it to our layout. Set it at the same scale, and we can move the back down and rearrange it as we need to. We have full use of our CAD and our text tools. So if we wanted to create a bounding box around this, we can click and drag to draw those out. We also have full text tools as well as text with arrows and different callouts. So we can label this as the front and back elevations of the home. Now because we've done all of the work already, creating our layout set, or our plan set, is going to be very easy. We can simply double click to open up our already pre-designed kitchen layout. We can send that to our layout, and let's do that on page number 2. We'll select OK, and this one we've sent it too small of a scale. So we can select our image, change the scale to, let's do, I think even 1/2 inch is going to be too small. Let's do 3/4 of an inch equals a foot. So that'll make it much larger for us so that we can see it on our page. And we can do the same thing with the cross section that we did earlier. Only let's update this one a little bit. So what we're going to do is let's add in some of our framing options. So we'll go down to our framing and add in our floor joists and our wall framing. And once we've selected all of our framing options, we can click OK, and it'll update the view. And now I'm going to zoom in on this foundation, and let's take a look in our library. We have some CAD details available. We're going to look at a bonus catalog. So this enables us to come down to our foundation. We have continuous pour foundation, and we can go ahead and find one and drop it into our plan. And then let's zoom in on this a little bit. So this is going to detail out what's happening at our foundation when it meets up with the first floor. And in this case we are using a sort of a brick veneer, but I actually want it to be a stone. So let's unblock this, and we're going to change this text. Let's call it a stone veneer. We'll select OK. And once we've made the changes, I'm going to block these all together again. And now we can add them to our library so that we can have this particular detail to use again in the future. Now I'm going to send this view to my layout. So let's zoom out just a little bit, and we'll send this to layout. First off, we're going to do the entire plan, and we're going to send it at a 1/4 inch scale. And let's make sure we send that to page number 3. Okay. And it's telling me that the view is too large to fit on the layout page. That's just because it's including all of the terrain, so we'll scale it back. So let's grab this and we'll pull it in so that it fits onto our layout page. And then let's zoom in all the way on our cross-section detail here, and we'll send this view to our layout. This one we're going to want to send at a much larger scale. Let's even just do a 1:1 scale. Select OK, and we'll rearrange this so that we have both views here in our plan. And these CAD details also can be placed directly into our plan. So if you have a number of CAD details that you know that you need to use for every plan, it's easy to just place them directly onto the plan sheet. But what we can also do is we can import images. So if we have images that we've done of the home, in this case we have both the image of the home itself as well as one I've done of the kitchen, we can definitely import those into our design as well. So we can simply pull them in, and then we can resize them. And these ones are actually going to resize because it's not a scaled image. Let's move this one over so we can make room for it. And then let's also import, on our second page we have the wall elevation of the kitchen. We can import our kitchen image and resize that a bit so we have that available for our professional design as well. These renderings can be used for client presentation, and they can also be used for our construction documents. So now in just a few minutes we were able to get several pages of our design well underway. I'm going to delete that one. Now let's take a look at a few things on our website. So here's our website, chiefarchitect.com. Under products we have the different products that we offer. We have our Premier and our Interiors version. You can compare the two if you want to see a side-by-side comparison of the different features that they offer. Under our User Center, here we can download additional catalogs. We can take a look at some training videos that we offer. So if we open this up, it's going to take us to our training video page where you can watch a general overview or look at different features of the program. If you're using the trial version, we do have a number of free videos that you can watch here. Also under the User Center, we have our samples gallery. So if you want to see some sample plan sets, you can come and download the plans themselves here. You can download a PDF of the construction document for that plan, and then some of them also have how to design videos, which are going to give you some in-depth videos on how you can go about designing that model. If we scroll down a bit, we have some sample plan sets available there, and we have some sample renderings, so you can see the type of image that can be produced with Chief Architect. If we go back up, also under the User Center, we have our knowledge base. So this is going to have a number of how-to articles on various things throughout the program. They're divided into different categories, so if you want to know more about cabinets or our CAD options, you can expand the folder and see a number of different how-to articles that will display there. We can also use this search bar to search for something specific, so if we want to do a plot plan, we can find an article on creating a plot plan that's going to walk us step by step through how to do so. And finally, under our User Center, we have our professional forum, Chief Talk. It's a great place to connect with other users. You can find users in your area, ask current users questions about the software, whether it's a how-to question or something specific to your area. So a building code or something to that effect. That can be a really great resource to glean more information about the program. If you want to sign up for additional training webinars, you can do so here on our homepage by going to the live demo sign up. And as always, feel free to download a free trial version of our program. It is a full working version. You can utilize all the features of the software. You just won't be able to save or print while working within that version. So I want to thank you for attending today's demonstration. We do have our two different products that we offer, Premiere and Interiors. Today's demonstration focused on the Premiere version, which is going to be our full builder architectural program. The Interiors is going to focus more on our interior design and kitchen and bath design. All of the features of the Interiors are contained in the Premiere version as well. All purchases of our software do include 1 year of support and software assurance, which is going to give you priority technical support, free upgrades when we release new versions, access to additional content downloads like I showed you on our website, and then access to the video training series that I showed you as well. We also have the option to rent Chief Architect at $199 a month. And if you have any questions at all about any of this, feel free to give us a call or send us an email. We would be happy to hear from you. So thank you again for attending, and I hope you have a wonderful day.